you so much for naisA with this whole collaboration and bringing forth, I think, people that are hungry in the community to be able to connect with other like-minded individuals, as well as being able to share some of our, I think, struggles and similar experiences, and to be able to share and collectively be able to encourage each other. So my story begins at the University of Michigan. I'm a Wolverine. While I was a junior at the University of Michigan, as I heard an extraordinary woman and very passionate lawyer, Andrea Lyons, speak about this horrific story where she was talking about this woman who was dragged down the street by her abusive husband, by her hair, and had been slashed a few times, and her intestines were hanging out. And the sadness of it was that while people heard and saw this happening, no one came to help her. It was really sad hearing that today still 1 in 3 women and 1 in 6 men are affected by domestic violence. Yet we still don't often react appropriately. We wait until a tragedy occurs to actually do something about this problem. But hearing that the statistic was so high, and continuously hearing more and more stories about individuals affected by domestic violence, I knew that I could not sit still and do nothing. So initially I went to law school at the University of Pittsburgh, and my goal was to help others affected by domestic violence. And so I really feel strongly that it's up to us often who have not been personally affected by domestic violence to speak up and out for the victims who cannot speak because of the shame, because of the blame they feel when coming forward. I'm not stigmatized by this cultural barrier as well as all those different issues, and I knew that it was something that I was very passionate about and coming forward to be able to do something about this cause. So chapter 2 of my story begins in 2006, when I'm recruited by the reality show Survivor by a casting agent on MySpace. That probably ages me, but so MySpace, if some of you don't know, was a site sort of like Facebook, more used for music, sharing and celebrating music. And I was recruited by a casting agent to try out. At the time, I was working for a government agency, working as a domestic violence lawyer, and I thought, what an awesome opportunity to use the stage to be able to speak about the cause. I mean, I don't know if any of you have seen the show, but you always see in the little corner in the bottom what the person does, right? And so I thought, what an awesome opportunity to use. I was very physically active. I played sports. I'm very aggressive, and at the same time, I knew that I was on a grant where I had the opportunity to take this chance. Obviously I was a little scared. I come from a very sort of conservative Korean family in Pittsburgh. I was raised to, either do the lawyer, doctor, the typical, secondary degree track. I was also firstborn, so expectations were very high for me to be the shining star of our family. I was very lucky. There was another gentleman who ended up winning the show. His name was Kwon. He's another Korean American, also a lawyer. But from the very start, we were very, very excited to meet each other because we had the common goals of, wow, we can use this show to elevate. When typically a show like this, where you see people, really being backstabbing, let's work together, and it'd be so amazing if we can collaborate and get to the end together. And that was a really big deal. I think that seeing that people on the show, as well as people in America, seeing people being able to work together, we have common interests of really helping to also push the Asian American sort of stereotypes, out of the way, so as well as being able to help each other, make it to the end. That show was really a great experience for me in the sense that I was able to come in third and win $85,000 from the show, and then be able to take that money to start my nonprofit in 2006 called Becky Lee. Kwon also joined my board at the time and donated another $25,000 to the nonprofit. But what's interesting to me, from that time to obviously 2017, especially in the nonprofit sector, obviously things didn't change. When I first started the organization, I had a focus really working with immigrant communities because specifically in my personal experience, seeing and sharing, talking about this issue, I've seen so many people sort of come out of their space and say, I was personally affected. I was speaking at colleges all across the US, and it was young men, males who were coming up saying, I saw this growing up, but I was never given sort of permission to come to the table to talk about this issue. Especially in the Asian community where we don't air our dirty laundry. Everything's always perfect, right? We only talk about those issues within our family. And so trying to use that with the cultural stigma of being able to talk about this openly as well as using the show, I've been very grateful to be able to be in that place to do so. one of the things I learned very quickly, even if you have a passion, even if it's a good passion, and you run a organization that does good, you have to understand business, right? And so very quickly, having to find my board members and having to understand that I still need to understand what the strategic plan is. And when my mentor first, asked me the question, what's your exit strategy? And I was like, that's so rude. Like, you already want me to fail? So understanding that the course of what it means to build a nonprofit, but actually understanding in a business way how to make a successful nonprofit. And those were some things that I learned very quickly. And also understanding that it's okay not to have all the answers. I think that I wanted to learn how to code. I wanted to learn how to make websites. I wanted to know how to do PR. I wanted to learn how to make flyers, and that's not my specialty. And I think that's another thing where we learn. You create that board. You create people around you, that team that you're able to then lean on to ask questions, and not being afraid to ask questions and not having all the answers. My third thing is embracing the hustle. I was always very embarrassed going into a room and people be like, oh, you have to find the CEO of this company, or go put your hand out and get your business cards ready. And I'd be like, I'm a little embarrassed. It's very pushy. But then, talking to other sort of Asian Americans in the culture when we're growing up and how we're very, poised and stoic. And I learned very quickly, especially in DC, you learn how to do your elevator pitch within minutes. You learn when you go to an event, you know who's going to be there, and you learn, don't waste your time. You go to that person, introduce yourself, and you ask. And I learned very quickly on how to ask and how to not take no personally. So that is my story, and so thank you so much for listening.